right, good morning. We are glad you're here. First of all, could we have a round of applause for every mom and grandmother in here? Ray, watch this. This is the, by the way, I love this 9:45 service. You've already had caffeine, so you're sharp and awake and everything, even some of the guys. And so there's a little bit of an IQ test. If you have a mom, would you raise your hand? Good. It's the only reason you're here. Good answer. Hey, we're really glad you're here. My name's Ray Johnston, and this is...
My name is Leslie.
And I'm Christy.
And we have a tradition. This is the second year. And
maybe the last.
These are Carol and I's twin daughters. And we speak together on Mother's Day. And we have an incredible message. So would you grab this out? Okay, you got this program coming in. It's at the top of it, it says, this changes everything. But we're really glad to be here. And if you can tell, these two are related.
Yes, we are twins. And last Mother's Day, if anyone was here, raise your hand, we showed you the brand new puppies that we got last year. And since we get to speak again this year, I'm going to hold you hostage for a second and show some pictures of what they look like now. A little bit bigger.
That's right. They're for sale. So if anybody wants one.
Completely untrained.
Yeah, exactly.
Completely untrained. But happy Mother's Day, everybody. We're so glad that you're here. We've got a couple questions for the moms out there right now.
Yeah, so for Mother's Day, we thought we're going to get a pulse of the moms here in the room. How many of you have planned out every second of today because you knew you were going to be disappointed if you weren't the one that planned it? Yes, probably a lot of you.
Who thinks that the person they're sitting next to is just finding out that it's Mother's Day right now? Yeah. Oh, I see some men raising their hands. That, not good.
Yeah, mall's still open. Don't worry.
Mall's still open.
And then lastly, how many of you moms, you're like, all I want for Mother's Day is for my kids to get along for one day?
And you know you're not going to get it.
Yeah. Give up that dream now. But
That's right. And by the way, for some of you guys, today's Mother's Day. Get at it. By the way, it's Mother's Day. I was hoping that we're a Bible church. We're in a series on the book of Acts. We've been in that series since the 1900s. And so that's who we are. So this week we're speaking on Acts 27. And I turned to it and I hope it's going to be like the perfect Mother's Day. It's all flowers and 3 poems and all of this kind of stuff. And instead, it's like, we're going to read this in a minute. Everything's going wrong. Paul boards, he's arrested. 40 guys want to assassinate him. He's being hauled off to Jerusalem to be on trial. There's going to be a shipwreck, all this kind of stuff. And I was talking to a friend of mine named Nancy, and I said, I was just getting a mom's perspective. I said, this is going to be like horrible. She goes, it's all chaos. And she goes, chaos is perfect for Mother's Day. And if you moms agree? So, if you got this, we're going to take in the Bible. I'm going to read this, and because this whole thing is about a storm, and ultimately, we're going to go, the best way you live a great life is to respond to storms in a good way, not a destructive way. Would you all agree? So here we go, but it's going to go from bad to worse, and it's actually some humor in it. Here we go, okay? When it was decided, Acts chapter 27, verse 1, when it was decided that we would sail for Italy, Paul and some other prisoners were handed over to a centurion, a Roman guard named Julius, who belonged to the imperial regiment. It's a big deal. We boarded a ship from Adramyttium about to sail for ports along the coast of the province of Asia, and we put out to sea. Aristarchus, a friend of Paul's actually, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, was with us, okay? The next day, we landed at Sidon, and Julius, in kindness, I went, oh, kindness, this is going to be a good Mother's Day message. Kindness to Paul allowed him to go see his friends so that they might provide for his needs. From there, we put out to sea again and passed along the lee of Cyprus. I've been to Cyprus. It's awesome, Mother's Day kind of stuff, because the winds were against us. Anybody ever felt like the winds are against you? It's like, man, I just can't make any progress. And when we had sailed across the open sea off the coast of Sicily and Pamphylia, we were landed at Myra and Sidon. Then a centurion found an Alexandrian ship sailing for Italy and put us on board. We made slow headway. Anybody ever felt like that? This thing is just taking longer and is harder. We made slow headway for many days and had difficulty, there's that word, arriving off Cnidus when the wind did not allow us to hold our course. That's a huge subject. We're going to come back to that. We sailed to the lee of Crete, Opera Salmon. We moved along the coast with difficulty and came to a place called Fair Havens near the town of Lasea. Much time had been lost. And get this, sailing had already become dangerous because by now it was after the Day of Atonement, okay? And after the Day of Atonement there was about a 3-month thing where do not sail, you will die. We'll come back to that in a minute, okay? Paul warns them. Any mom ever had to warn your kids about anything? Did they listen? Watch this. Paul warns them, men, I can see that our voyage is going to be disastrous and bring loss of ship and cargo to our own lives as well. Paul knows what he's talking about because he's been in 3 shipwrecks, okay? And but the centurion, instead of listening to his mom, to what Paul said, followed the advice of the pilot and the owner of the ship, since the harbor was unsuitable to winter in. The majority, who are frequently flat wrong, decided we should sail on, hoping to reach Phoenix and winter there. This was a harbor in Crete facing both southwest and north. When a gentle south wind began to blow, they saw their opportunity. Ignoring Paul's advice, they weigh anchor and sail along the shore of Crete. Before long, a wind of hurricane force, called a nor'easter, swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind, and so we gave way and were driven along. And then what happens is this storm blows them away. It is shipwreck off an island. They all end up losing ship. They all survive, and you'll hear about that in a minute. And then they go on. Paul makes a fire for everybody, and he reaches in to put a wood in the fire, and he's bitten by a poisonous snake. Welcome to Mother's Day. And now, some of you are going, wait a second. Okay, we live next to the largest ocean in the world, Pacific Ocean. It's dangerous sailing. How dangerous could it be to sail on the Mediterranean Sea? We do it all the time. We do these Apostle Paul tours. It's one of my favorite things to do. We get in a ship, we sail the Mediterranean Sea. It's fantastic, okay? How bad could it get? Here's a shot. It's going to go by quick. Here's a little video clip of a boat on the Mediterranean Sea a while back. This looks like fun, doesn't it? And so here, there he goes. This is the dining room. And so the ship goes on one side and everybody kind of rambles to okay, let's set all this stuff back up. You don't need to set it back up because the ship's going to bring it all back to where it started. Welcome to Acts 27, everybody. Here we go.
You can register for the Bayside cruise after the service in the lobby.
And so what we're going to do is this. We're going to walk through this. You're in a storm, coming out of a storm, or you're going to be in a storm. Okay? And what you do with that storm, you will either survive well or you will fall apart. And so we're going to give you 4 smart decisions to make. Anytime a storm hits your marriage, hits your family, hits your finances, hits your life, hits your kids, what are 4 smart decisions, okay? And so we're going to do that. Number 1, what can we lose in a storm? And smart decision number 1, Les?
Yes, the first smart thing to do is don't give in to discouragement and despair. So the verse says, from there we put out to sea again and passed to the lee of Cyprus because the winds were against us. So in the book of James, we're going to put this up on the screen, but in James we see the 4 facts of life that you need to know when it comes to problems. So the verse says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. So number 1, problems are inevitable. It says whenever you face trials of many times, it's not if, it's when. I think as Christians, a lot of times we think, oh, if I'm a Christian, then my life should be so smooth. Well, you're right in the verse that it won't necessarily be. Number 2 is problems are unpredictable. It says whenever you face trials, so you're going to face them. Number 3, problems are varied. There's trials of many different kinds. There's a massive variety of trials that we'll experience in our life. But the good news is that these problems, it says in James, can be developmental.
That's exactly right. Now, if you take a look at those kind of things, 4 facts of life. Now, look up here for a second. This is a Bible, 66 books. This is the book of James, which is 4 pages. That's it, 4 pages. At one point in time, James was the first New Testament book written. So at one point in time, if you went to First Baptist Church in Jerusalem, okay, and they said, turn to James, you're like, that's easy. It's the only thing I got. James wrote it. Okay, 108 verses. That was it. James is the half-brother of Jesus, so James writes this book, and I think what's going on with James is he's going, this is the only thing people are going to ever have to walk with God and live great lives. So I got to put every single thing in this book. So in a sense, you're going, maybe the most important book to read in the New Testament about living, walking with God is the book of James. Everybody got that? Okay, now, so it was the first book and the only one they had. So James, I'm putting it all in here, and when he starts, the most important thing you will ever read, he starts with this. Count it all joy when you have trials, because James going, evidently, how we handle these tough times is gonna be more important than any other thing. In other words, if you're taking notes, would you write this down? How you respond to tough times is going to develop and deepen you or destroy and wipe out your life. Make sense? Or if you're taking more notes, write this down. When tough times hit. Matter of fact, anybody in a marriage? Anybody married here? Okay, good. Anybody ever had problems at that marriage? Yeah, honey, put your hand down. And this is going to make you or break you, give you a future or wreck it, and here it is, okay? You're going to react or you're going to respond. You're gonna react. I'm out, you're gonna react. That did it, you're gonna react. Or you're going to go, wait a second, I wanna do this a God-honoring way, I wanna do this wisely. I'm gonna respond by taking some smart steps to make things better. Make sense? Okay? And so you look at that. Problems can actually be developmental, and we've had great conversations about that.
Yeah, so I think when we were younger in high school, we were sophomores in high school, I feel like we experienced this for the first time. But we went to a small Christian school, and we had a volleyball coach who was the hardest coach that we've ever had in our whole lives. We went to a small Christian school. I think she thought this was like a D1 high school, like the way she treated us.
18 probably.
Yes, exactly. So she was so tough on us. She would yell at us. She would, in practice, if we did something wrong, she'd make us do wall sits for like an hour. Has anyone ever done a wall sit? Yeah, it's like a terrible form of torture. But she was so hard on us. She would yell at us all the time. So one day, Christy and I were like, that's it. We're going home, and we're telling our parents we quit volleyball. So we come into the room. We're crying. We're like, we hate volleyball. We hate our coach. She's so mean to us. She yells at us all the time. And I remember my dad and my mom, they were sitting there. My dad's like, well, do you think like maybe she's doing this for a reason? We're like, no, she's not, Dad.
Absolutely not.
She hates us. Yeah, she hates us. She picks on us. And we're like, she picks on all the good girls on the team who actually are good at volleyball, and she's really nice to the girls who are terrible at volleyball. It makes no sense. Whatever, we were crying. We're like, we quit. And my dad, who's been a coach for many years, I remember he was like, this is awesome. Like, I'm so glad this is happening to you guys.
I actually said this. I said, because they came in, we're upstairs, laying on bed. They come in, they're crying. They're like, we quit. It's about all this kind of stuff. She yells at us, all this kind of stuff. And I actually said this. Wait, she yelled at you guys? Yes. I went, that's great. I'm a terrible listener.
Yeah. So he's like, that's great, because no wonder she doesn't pick on the girls who are not good. He's like, she doesn't see a future with them in volleyball. He's like, you girls that are good on the team, he's like, no wonder she's yelling at you. She's trying to develop something in you because she sees where you could go with this. She sees that you can go to varsity, maybe play in college. We did not play in college, but she at least saw something in us that could, and she saw something that was worth developing. So from that moment on, we went back to school the next day to practice, and we were like, bring it on, coach. Like, we're so awesome. Every time you yell at us, that makes us work even harder. And so it was funny because I feel like every time our coach yelled at us, it's because she saw potential in us, which I look at all you guys, and Mark Clark must see a lot of potential in you guys, which is good news. But for real, it was all about perspective. We could have quit when we got discouraged and down, but I'm glad we didn't, because I felt like it taught us that God sometimes, he doesn't cause bad things to happen in our life, but he develops us through the bad things that happen in our life.
Yeah. And when
Oh, wow. Applause from like 30 people. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And another example of that, I don't know if anyone else feels this way. It seems like nothing great is ever developed on the mountaintops of life when things are going really well. Great things develop when we're actually in the valleys. My mom told me when I was a kid to read this book called Hind's Feet on High Places. I didn't listen to her. I didn't read it. And then I read it as an adult, and it completely changed my life. It's this beautiful book. It's a spiritual allegory of this girl named Much Afraid. And she's traveling to try to get to someplace she really wants to go called the high places. And the Jesus figure in the book, who's the shepherd, he's like, I'm gonna give you 2 companions. And she's like, awesome, these 2 companions are gonna help me on this hard journey to get up to the high places. It's probably gonna be like courage and strength. And Jesus hands her 2 very different companions, sorrow and suffering. And he gives her these 2 companions because he knows that these companions are only going to be able to be the ones to develop in her what she needs to get to the high places. And I think this is so interesting because I really believe that there are really lessons that only sorrow can teach, that good times don't teach, that easy times, problem-free times don't teach. You learn lessons in the storm. And I think so often we try to avoid pain and suffering at all costs because we think that it's something wrong. But really, God is developing in us depth, maturity, kindness, compassion. Those things are always developed in the valleys, never on the mountaintops. So if you feel like if you're in a season where you're like, I'm just feeling a lot of sorrow and suffering, those feel like they are my companions right now, God has not forgotten you. God has not gone, hey, that's an accident. Those are on purpose. And I think if we try to avoid our problems rather than viewing our problems as purposeful, we miss out on the purpose of the storm. So if the winds are against you right now, I feel like you're in a storm, that does not mean God is not for you. That does not mean God is against you. And I think that this shows that when the Apostle Paul, when the winds were against him, he believed that this was for a purpose and that he's going to continue on in that, which I think if we all take a lesson from that, would be able to view storms as something that is purposeful, not on accident.
Yeah, so when you come...
That's our section right
Right
there.
over there, right over there.
Thanks for Mom for starting that up. The number one is this. Here's the deal. Before your life self-destructs, it happens inside first, then outside. Make sense? Okay? Which means smart decision number one is don't give in to discouragement and despair, because when that happens to you on the inside and you give into it, then number 2 happens, which is you drift off course. You drift off course. So he's really saying this, don't give in to discouragement and despair so that you won't drift off course, okay? I'll give you an example. If a marriage, there are seasons in every marriage where things just aren't going well. Agree? Okay, that was lame. Agree? Yeah. If you're a guy and you said yes, that was an idiot test, you failed it. And what happens is this, when problems hit, which they do all marriages, then if discouragement and despair happen on the inside, then your whole thing may drift off course. So number one is you start by going, I am going to refuse to let discouragement and despair cause me to drift off course. Make sense? I love church. I love having church. Every 7 days, God gets a chance in worship and the teaching of his word to erase discouragement out of your life and replace it with hope so that you don't drift off course. Everybody got that? Okay, now, so the second one is don't drift off course. And here's why do you drift off course? Because things don't get fixed fast. Watch this. We made slow headway for many days and had difficulty arriving off ground. And when the wind did not allow us to hold our what? course, okay? They start drifting, and nobody ever drifted their way to a great life. I'm gonna give you an example of this, okay? I had one of my favorite conversations ever. A guy came up to me, this was maybe 10 years ago, after one of the services, and he said, hey, got an older guy, and he said, I wanna thank you for starting this church. And I said, by the way, it's a thrill of life to be here, man, thank you. And I said, why? And he said, I have not gone to church for 42 years. And I said, do you mind if I ask you why? And he said, I was going to church and they did something and it hurt me and I got mad and I left. By the way, he got discouraged and filled with despair. Got it? And he said, so I left and I haven't been to church in 42 years. But I'm gonna come here. And I looked at him, we had a great conversation. The last thing I said to him, and which I'd say to all of you, is I'd say, sir, you gotta do me a favor, okay? I just wanna ask you to do one thing for the rest of your life, okay? And here it is. He said, you let people that hurt you cause you to be discouraged, have despair, and bitterness. Which means the people that hurt you reshaped your inner life negatively and caused you to take actions for the last 42 years. In other words, you let the people that, that hurt you and didn't like you, you let those people rob you of fellowship, rob you of relationships, rob you of worship, rob you of the encouragement of hearing God's word of doing, rob you of being part of a family of God that changes the world, rob you of all the great benefits of being in a church. You let them rob you of it so I said, which means the people that hurt you control you years later. Make sense? So pretty much you're going, man, number one is this, whatever you do, stage one, don't let discouragement and despair rise up in your life when things get hard. And then stage two is this, make sure you don't drift off course. And now, the third one is the next natural reaction, and here it is.
Yes, it's don't listen to the wrong experts. So it said, so Paul warned them, men, I can see that our voyage is going to be disastrous and bring great loss to the ship and cargo and to our own lives also. But the centurion, instead of listening to what Paul said, followed the advice of the pilot and the owner of the ship. Since the harbor was unsuitable to winter in, the majority decided that we should sail on, hoping to reach Phoenix, not Arizona, by the way, and winter there. So this isn't Paul's first shipwreck, by the way. In Corinthians 2, it says that Paul was shipwrecked 3 times before this. So it's not his first rodeo, but a lot of times we don't always listen to the best advice. I think our generation gets a lot of flack for not like kind of making up our own things, making up our own truth, not believing maybe the truth. But I just have to say, like,
you're actually being nice. Girls will tell me, your generation, my generation.
You believed a lot of stupid stuff. So take a look at the screens.
True.
As an example.
This is real, by the way.
Here's one of our commercials.
What cigarette do you smoke? You'll be interested to know how the doctors of America answered that question. Tens of thousands of doctors in all parts of the country, in every state of the union. Doctors in every branch of medicine were asked, what cigarette do you smoke, doctor? In this nationwide survey of general practitioners, surgeons, throat specialists, diagnosticians, and so on, the brand named most was Camel.
Yes, according to this survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Try Camels yourself. Make the one sensible cigarette test. Make your own 30-day Camel mildness test in your T-zone. Smoke only Camels for 30 days. Enjoy Camel's rich, full flavor. And see how well Camels agree with your throat. Pack after pack, week after week. See for yourself why Camels are so popular with the doctors of America.
Can you believe that?
So we've evened the playing field now, but we all believe stupid stuff. And I think we can't always listen to the majority, but why didn't they listen to Paul in this passage? He had 3 shipwrecks in his past. Why wouldn't they listen to someone who's done this before? And I think that's because most people listen to the wrong experts because they find people that tell them what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. Kevin Thompson was actually sent us a text last night kind of about this as we were talking about it, and we actually put it up on the screens because we thought it was so good.
Really smart.
He said, the reason people listen to the wrong experts is they tell us what we want to hear rather than what we need to hear. Too often we find more comfort in the wind being with us, which is in verse 13, than God being for us. The wind can change, but God does not.
We'll leave that up for a second if you want to take a picture of that. Is really smart. By the way, we watched that commercial. We've seen it a bunch of times now. Is that the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard? Is that the stupidest thing you've ever heard? Doctors recommend this. Throat specialists recommend cigarettes for you, for your health, okay? And people believe that. What kind of stuff on the internet or whatever is being shoved down our throats right now that 50 years from now, everybody's going to look at how stupid were they to even listen to this? Make sense? Okay, so that's a great point, honey, and thanks for pointing that out about my generation.
And then the final point, the fourth thing that a storm can cause us to do is live a life filled with fear. 1 John 4:18 says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. There's actually three kinds of fear. This is something that I just feel like I'm finding out in like the last year, and I hope it helps you as much as it's helping me. But there are three kinds of fear. And the first one is surface level fear. These are the fears that kind of like don't really mean much. It's like, oh, I'm afraid that I'm gonna get a speeding ticket. Oh, I'm afraid I'm not gonna pay the bills. Oh, when I was a kid, I was deathly afraid of elevators. Anybody else never wanna get in one of those contraptions? When I was a kid, my family would go to a hotel and they would take the elevator and I'd be like, I'm gonna go to the dark stairwell by myself and walk up 4 flights of stairs. It was irrational, but these are some of our surface level fears. These are the ones that don't really ultimately matter that much. Then we have the second level of fears, and these are subconscious fears. Fears like failure, rejection, being abandoned, losing control, loneliness. When I was a kid, I was super afraid of losing my parents. The early days of Bayside were amazing and they were awesome, but there was also a lot of people who didn't want Bayside to become a thing and said a lot of really crazy things, some threats, things like that. I probably overheard some things that I shouldn't have heard, and so I became very afraid. And I was afraid I was gonna lose my family, my parents, and I remember I was a smart little kid. I was like, okay, if I'm at school and all of a sudden I'm afraid, like, oh, are they okay? I would fake sick, go to the office, because I knew that they would allow me to call my mom if I was sick, and I could check and see if she was okay. And so some things happened that just intensely helped these subconscious fears really come to life for me as a kid. And I think I've always just recognized those two fears. I've always been, okay, there's the surface level fears and then the subconscious fears, the one that's really feels really hard and intense. But what I completely missed out is that there's a third level of fear. And this is the one that if you solve this, the other two actually cause change, and it's soul fears. These are the deep fears. These are like the well in which everything else comes out of. It's the fears that end up dominating our lives, but we don't even recognize it. It's if you don't deal with soul fears, the first two, you will be completely plagued with anxiety for the rest of your life if you do not solve the soul fears. And we all have them, and they're all developed. Back when I was a kid, I think one of these soul fears developed in me, and it was that God's not looking out for me. It's that I have to look out for myself. God doesn't love me enough to look out for me. And everyone has soul fears. And I think the antidote to soul fears is not your worst fears not coming true, right? The fear doesn't go away because you're like, oh, well, maybe it won't happen in the future. The antidote to fear is not an easy, problem, storm-free life. The antidote to fear is confidence. It's not fear, it's confidence, but it's not confidence in us, it's confidence in God. It's confidence in his unconditional love for us, his unconditional security that he provides in us no matter what we go through. That is the only thing that has helped my soul fears, is not developing confidence in me, but a confidence in him. And I think when we start to recognize our deep needs, these deep soul fear needs, I think everyone's deep need is that to be unconditionally loved. And as 1 John 4:18 says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love. And no one else can give us perfect love except for God. Perfect love drives out fear. Will drive out those soul fears. So if we just try to go to the first two fears, the surface fears and the subconscious fears, and try to deal with those in our own power, it's useless. I promise you it's useless. But actually going to the soul fears and going to the taproot of that and going, God's unconditional love will drive that fear out of us. That is only when we begin to find freedom.
Wow. Girls are turning out like mom, thank God. Before we wrap this up, I want you to take a look at these four things. Because everybody in here is going through some storm. Some of you, it's an emotional storm. Some of you, it's a financial storm. Some of you, anybody here ever had storms in their marriage, family, with your kids, with your parents? Some of you got friendship storms, job storms. Everybody's got storms, okay? And this whole thing is saying how you process and handle those is going to determine your entire future. And so he's going, whatever your storm is, you're gonna react and do all kinds of crazy stuff, or you're gonna respond. And the only response, and I believe it's in this order, is this. Number one, response number one is, I will not, whether it's about your marriage, your life, your future, whatever it is, I will not give in to discouragement and despair. And when I do that, then I will not allow this to cause me to drift off the course God's got for my life. Third is this, and I am going to refuse to listen to the wrong experts, and that is, whether it's a doctor telling you camels are good for your throat, or whether it's some so-called expert telling you to do the opposite of what God and you know is best. And the last one is this, ultimately, I'm going to refuse to live a life filled with fear, because fear will drive you in the other direction, okay? And so now, all of that stuff is massive. This is almost a prescription for how to live a great life and how to avoid shipwrecking your life. Now, the question is this, what can we gain in a storm? What can we gain it? How do we go after it? And I love this because Luke is first person on the boat, and he's writing the book of Acts. So he's there, okay? And Luke writes these words, here it is. When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days. Anybody ever felt like that? And the storm continued raging. He says this, we finally gave up all hope of being saved. Some of you have been there, some of you are there, and some of you are there. I've given up all hope on marriage or whatever it is for you, okay? Notice this. He says, and then Paul starts talking. And Paul says this, but now I urge you, keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost. Only the ship will be destroyed. He's going, you want to lose this ship, okay? But I've been through this 3 times. I love this. He goes, keep up your, not one of you will be lost. Last night, an angel of God to whom I belong. That's when you belong to God, it game changes everything. An angel of God to whom I belong and whom I serve stood beside me and said, don't be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. I love this. So he goes, so keep up your courage, men, for I have faith in God. It will happen just as he told me. Nevertheless, we're going to run around and blah, 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 all of this kind of stuff. I did this one time. We took a whole bunch of people to Kenya, and then did a bunch of mission stuff there with an organization called Compassion International. They were amazing. And then we went on a safari. It was a 36-hour safari. Anybody been on a safari ever? It's cool, but they take these rattle-trap airplanes. It's about an hour flight, and you land on a dirt runway. Matter of fact, to do this, they have to buzz the runway to get rid of the animals, then they circle around and land on this dirt runway. It's really fun. And so we hop on the flight to go back, and it's kind of stormy in some places, and this plane was kind of a rattle-trap plane, and there's a bunch of us on it, and somebody is holding the door closed. The door had to be held closed. This is that plane. We take off, and we start hitting some turbulence, and people are starting to get scared. A couple of them are tearing up. They're like, we're gonna die, all this kind of stuff. And I finally, after about 15 minutes or so, I said, hey, wait a second. I said, we're gonna be fine. I said, because when I get back, God has already told me what I'm going to preach on next Sunday at Bayside. He would not have told me that if this plane were going to crash. So buckle up, enjoy the ride. We are gonna be fine, okay? So keep up your courage. Because in a storm, you have three things. And I think, Christy, you said, one of you said this, you went, the key to this is confidence. The promises of God, these three things. Where do you get confidence? Number one, the presence of God. He is right with you wherever you're at, and he's got your back. That's the first one. The second one is?
Yeah, the second one is God's purpose. So who got to see Michael Jr. when he was here, maybe at Thrive or Comedy Night? He's hilarious, but I went to the Comedy Night over at Adventure last week, and he told a story that I feel like I haven't been able to forget this last week. But he talked about how in elementary school, he was actually put in a special education class growing up, and he was so confused by it. He was like, I'm so angry, I feel misplaced, like I'm not supposed to be here. And he said all through elementary school, he struggled with that. Until later in his life, he told us later in the evening that later in life, he realized that that was God's plan for his life during that time because that set him up where he is today. He talked about how being in that class, he had to learn to make people laugh who maybe couldn't hear, and so he had to learn how to do comedy through body language. He had to change up his jokes for different types of people, and so he said all of that made him into the comedian that he is today, and he wouldn't change it for the world. So he challenged all of us in the room. He said, what problems or storms are you going through right now that you feel like are useless, but they're actually your own special education for what God has for you in the future? And so I thought it was so powerful and such a great reminder that God's purpose for you doesn't just include an easy road to get there, but sometimes the storms that we go through in life actually make us into the person that God has for the plan that he has for us.
Wow, that's good.
That's awesome. And the third thing that you get in the midst of storms is God's promises. Taylor Gall is one of our worship leaders up here. He's incredible. Him and his family lost his dad about a little over a month ago. Tragic loss, way too soon. And Taylor posted something online that was really, really impactful and really, really powerful, and it was so profound. And I just want to read it to you. He says, I wrote a little bit about my dad. I've been taking some time to live in the moment and to make sure that I allow myself to feel everything. It's been about a month since I lost my dad. It feels like it's been 5 minutes and 10 years all at once. This has been and continues to be the most painful thing I have ever gone through, and I'm deeply aware that I will never be quite the same. My dad was my hero and my best friend, and I miss him terribly. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that he was literally the best man that I have ever met, and being his son was the blessing of a lifetime. This is so profound, you guys. It's been strangely comforting to understand that grief and gratitude share much of the same space. Every time another wave of sorrow finds me, I'm never far from feeling thankful that I've had someone who is so hard to live without. And while my brain is still operating in denial every time I go to send a text message about sports or to call and check in or fun to share a story about my boys, I'm turning my attention towards making him proud with how I spend the rest of my days. As a friend, a husband, a follower of Jesus, and a father, we are all just playing catch up with you, Dad. And I love how he ends this. He says, P.S. I want to include a list of some things I don't know how I could have made it without. Things I'm thankful for. The hope of the gospel and the promise of heaven. The presence of God, and the comfort and peace that only he can give. That I have the best wife, the best mom, the best brothers, and that I'm so close with my family. My 3 strong and beautiful sons, and the one that is on the way. I'm so proud of them. They make our life so full, and I can see my dad in them. Friends who are family, who have shown up for us in countless different ways. And then he ends with this, for my church, and the fact that I was raised in it. I have seen the love of Jesus so clearly through his people in these days.
Wow. To wrap this up, it all comes back to perfect love casting out fear. All of it. And the minute we had this conversation, it took me back. We used to live in Chicago. It's a big mistake, don't do it, but Wrigley Field was awesome. So was the pizza. And we lived in Chicago. Carol and I back then, we just had our 2 boys. And right before you guys were born, we lived in not a great part of town, in an old ramshackle house, kind of creepy and kind of scary. And so every night before our young boys would go to bed, I'd play hide and seek with them. And they were so little, I would just hide in the same spot every night, okay? Every night. And I would go through the kitchen and into this room, and then I would hide in the same closet, a closet door, just close the door, and they knew where I was, but I would turn off all the lights on the way there. And so they would be walking scared. I'd hear them come to the door. I don't know. And they'd be like, you open the door? No, you open the door. And so I'm behind the door. And when they got close, I started going, I started making all these scary noise, and I'd start pounding on the door a little bit. And I'd hear them go, no. They'd walk away a little bit. They'd come walking back up. They'd walk away a little back up. You could tell they were like, I think that's Dad, but it's a little scary, so I'm not really going to approach this, all this kind of stuff. So when they got really close, I would finally throw the door open, jump out and go, yeah! And they would scream and race away. And then for about 5 steps. And as they're running, I could see them. And it happened every single night. They would run away, and then they would stop, and they would go, wait a second. What are we doing? That's just Dad. Let's attack him. And I'd dive on the bed, and they would dive on top of me and throw their arms around me, and we would roll around. So my best memories were that. When they went, wait a second, that's just Dad. We're not afraid of him. Let's go and get a hug from Dad before we go to bed. Why am I sharing that? Because at the end of this is this. The bottom line is this. You don't need to be in control. You just need to know the one who is. You need to throw yourself in the arms of the one who is in control, who loves you more than anybody else, who said, I will never leave you and I will never forsake you, who says literally, my grace is sufficient, which means, no, there is nothing in your past you have ever done that is unforgivable and needs to stop you from having a great relationship with God, fueling a great future. Let's pray together. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes? God brought some of you here this morning so you could hear this. No matter what you're going through, you can throw yourselves this morning into the embrace of a God who you thought was too scary to love you. And so if you're here this morning going, man, I need to be loved by God. I need a relationship with God. I need rising levels of confidence. I need a new start and a clean slate. If that's where you're at, I'm going to pray a very simple prayer. And if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you're going, man, I would love to feel the embrace of God. I would love to know I'm forgiven. I would like Christ in my life. I would love to live in God's presence, on God's power every day from now on. I'm going to pray a very simple prayer. That can happen to you in this next moment. I invite you to pray with me. I'll pray out loud. You can pray with me silently, but if this is what you need, pray with me right now. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, I thank you for loving me every second of every day. And Jesus Christ, I believe in you. So right now, I ask you to forgive me for all my sin. I let the past go. Jesus Christ, I receive you this morning. Come into my life. Be my Savior. Set me free. And be my Lord. I'm throwing myself in your arms. Wrap them around me. Make me the person you want me to be. I give you my future. And if you prayed that prayer, I'm not going to call you out, not going to embarrass you, but man, I would love to pray for you that the rest of your life ends up becoming the best of your life. Okay? And so if you prayed that prayer, I'm going to count to 3. And on the count of 3, would you just raise your hand if you prayed this prayer? It's going to be a sea of you. So if you prayed with me on the count of 3, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Go for it. There's a whole bunch of you. Awesome. We have a table at the front right-hand side. The minute this is done, just go to that table. Then we'll give you free a book I wrote for free, a copy of the Bible I wrote, and some great material on how to walk with God. Lord, would you wrap your arms of love around these men and around these women? May they know the joy that comes to people whose future is secure and the hope that comes to people who know nothing in their past matters. Thank you for your love today. Wrap your arms around them in Jesus' name. God's people said.
All right, guys, thanks so much for watching our Bayside online service. We're so glad that you're actually part of our church, which you are, even though you're watching from all over the world, and we have people literally watching from all over the world. You are part of our family, and we want to get to know you. So please make sure you get in touch with us. Let us know your story. We'd love to hear you and serve you in any way we can. Also, part of what drives the way we connect as a church globally is giving. And so if you're part of our family, we would love you to start giving to our church. Those resources, we steward them to reach people all over the world. And we hear amazing stories about what Jesus is doing with your resources. So if you already give, thank you. If not, you can start giving. We would love that. And then finally, we have all kinds of stuff we do. We have a podcast network. We have like 10 podcasts that address a whole bunch of different things in your life. So if you're a podcaster, join us in the Thrive Podcast Network. We'd love to serve you. We have a ton of stuff there. We just want to make sure that you feel part of our family. So we love you. Thank you so much for being part of this family, and we will see you next week.